Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay Edel. I am a dietetic intern at Dominican University, and we are here in my home today to make buffalo chickpea grain bowls, which is something that we have recently experimented with in this household and absolutely loved. So this is my shoe chef today. Say hi.
Hi.
And she's going to be helping me out in the kitchen. Just wanted to emphasize this is a great recipe that you can do with your whole family if you do have little ones at home. However, we are using kind of a sharp knife for one of the portions of the assembly of this bowl, so just to be careful of that. But there are plenty of things that you can do with your kids, and cooking is definitely one of them. So the first ingredient obviously is chickpeas. I have some chickpeas here in a can. I have the regular version, and then I have the low sodium version. So obviously the difference is the amount of sodium between the two, and I'm going to be actually cooking with the regular sodium today, and we're going to show you a little tip about how to get some of that salt off the chickpeas before we cook them. But there are two options out there. Next, we're going to move on to our buffalo sauce. So I have a 1/4 cup of Frank's Red Hot's buffalo sauce. Here, you can use any type of buffalo sauce that you like, or maybe make your own. Completely fine. We just happen to have Frank's Red Hots at home, and we like that flavor. In addition to the buffalo sauce, I have a 1/2 tablespoon of butter that I'll be adding to it just to give it a little bit of that creaminess and cut through maybe some of the heat of the buffalo sauce. The next ingredient we have here is celery. As we know, buffalo sauce and celery, buffalo wings and celery are kind of like a match made in heaven, and so we like to emphasize that in the grain bowl. Next, we have our cooking liquid. We are going to be using vegetable broth today to cook our grain. However, you are more than welcome to just use water if that's what you have on hand. We like the vegetable broth as it adds a little bit more flavor to the grain, but it's totally up to your opinion. Lastly, we have the quinoa. This is going to be the grain that we're using today. Quinoa is a complete source of protein, like some of the animal sources of protein you may be familiar with. So it gives it that extra protein boost, as this is a totally vegetarian meal. However, you are more than welcome to use brown rice or white rice or whatever you have on hand right now. We just happen to have quinoa, so that's what we'll be using.
So, are we going to cook the quinoa first?
Yes, that's exactly the first thing that we're going to do. So, as with most grains, the quinoa has the instructions for how to cook on the back of the container, so I'm just going to read that. You're going to add your 2 cups of liquid. Like I said, we are using vegetable broth, but you may be using water, to a saucepan, and you're going to bring that to a boil. So we're just going to turn on the heat here and wait until this boils, and then once it does, we'll add the quinoa in. Hi everyone! I know you can't see our faces, but here we are at my sink, and we have the open can of garbanzo beans, and I have a colander here, so I'm going to have my sous chef pour the garbanzo beans into the colander, and you see all that liquid kind of goes through and drips out the bottom. I'm sure you've used a colander before. And we're also going to just take a little bit of cold water and really rinse the garbanzo beans.
What does that do?
So this is removing some of that excess sodium that might have been in the liquid around the garbanzo beans and kind of getting all of that excess liquid off of it, just in an attempt to reduce some of the sodium. So as you can see here, we've rinsed them off completely, and now I'm just going to let them sit here and dry a little bit. We're staying at the sink for another hot second. We're going to rinse off our celery, so just running it under a little bit of cold water to remove any of the dirt or anything that might be hiding in the celery stalks there.
There we go.
And then we'll pat it dry. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell, but you probably can't tell, but our broth is boiling, so we're going to add a cup of quinoa into the 2 cups of broth, and then we'll turn down the heat to, I think it says low, medium low. Put the lid on the pan, and then start our timer for 15 minutes. So we are making a cup of quinoa for the 2 of us. This is going to be our lunch today. So scale up or down as appropriate, and there will be a recipe linked with this food demonstration as well, so you can follow that recipe and make as many servings as you need. Okay. So while our quinoa is cooking in that saucepan right there, I'm going to chop up some celery to go on the side of the bowl. You can also add shredded carrots if that's something that you like with your buffalo flavor as well. However, we just have celery on hand, so I'm just going to be demoing celery. So I'm just going to cut little, I call them C's, little ribs of the celery to create that crunch within the dish and, give it a little something extra other than just the chickpeas and the quinoa. So I'm just going down through here, cutting semi-even pieces of the celery, and then these will be sprinkled on top of the bowl. If you want even smaller pieces in this, you are more than welcome to cut them in half to have a little bit of a smaller piece, but for our purposes, we are just gonna cut them in a little bit of a bigger piece.
And just 2 stalks, or as much as you want. If you want more crunch,
add more. Yeah.
Vegetable.
But when we had made this the last time, we only had used 2 and it worked out pretty well. So this is the only portion of the recipe that uses a knife. So just if you do have little ones at home and you want them to help, this might just be a parent activity. So we have about 4 minutes left on the quinoa. It's almost done cooking, so I'm going to start cooking, or just heating up, I guess, the garbanzo beans while we wait for the quinoa to finish, as they won't take that long. So we're going to place it's a cup of garbanzo beans for the 2 of us. We're going to place that into a saucepan, put it on low to medium heat, and then I'll add the Frank's Red Hots in just a second, and the butter to add some of that flavor so that it's, mixed together a little bit before you're combining the whole grain bowl. So I have my sous chef here adding the chickpeas in, and then she's going to grab the Frank's Red Hots, that 4th cup, and pour that in as well. And then lastly, I'm going to just take a small slice of butter, maybe even a 4th tablespoon, maybe not even a half, and plop that in there so as it heats up, that butter melts and it starts kind of all to come together. Just a quick editor's note here. I realized as we were recording this that I'm using garbanzo beans and chickpeas interchangeably. They are the same thing. Garbanzo beans, as you may know, is just the Spanish word for chickpeas. So as I use those 2, they're completely interchangeable. They are the same thing. I just realized I was kind of saying them both. So now you know. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you already knew that, but just in case. So our quinoa is done cooking, as well as the chickpeas. So we're going to combine it all together, throw a little bit of celery on top, and then that's really it. So I'm going to portion out the quinoa into the bowls. It has a really nice golden color to it, partially because of the vegetable broth that we use, and partially just because we are using white quinoa, and that is a little bit of the color of white quinoa. So as you can see, these are pretty healthy portion sizes. So if you are feeding your entire family and maybe your little ones don't eat as much as this, maybe take that into consideration as you are creating this recipe. I'm also going to come over here and grab my chickpeas that have been coated now in the buffalo sauce. They have a little bit of that buffalo tint to them, and just pour them on one side of this grain bowl. You are also more than welcome to mix everything together in a large bowl and then serve it. Since it's only the 2 of us, it's okay for us just to portion it out into bowls, but if you're making a larger serving, it might serve you better to make one big portion of it. Okay, last but not least, just adding some celery on the side there. And that's it. If you guys like ranch in your household and you want to add a little bit of ranch to this, or like I said, any other vegetable, maybe a carrot, that's totally fine as well. But here you have it. Buffalo chickpea grain bowls. Super simple, super easy, and we hope you guys like it as much as we do. Thank you so much for watching.